Hello students, today I am going to start the second unit that is collection, organization and presentation of data from your book Statistics for Economics. This whole unit has been divided into several chapters, okay, like as the unit name refers, collection, organization and presentation of data. So, each chapter will be named as collection of data, then organization of data, then presentation of data, means several chapters will be there, okay. So, among all those chapters, the first chapter will be having under this unit, that is collection of data. So, today I am going to start with this first chapter of the second unit, that is collection of data. Okay. Let us see the introduction to this. Let me give you the introduction to the chapter. Collection of data, generally the first step in any statistical inquiry, or you can say any kind of statistical investigation. Now, during this investigation or inquiry, quantitative information is collected for the purpose of the study or analysis. Okay. Now, this data can be collected from various sources, which we will see later on. Okay. What are the sources of this data collection and all. Okay. So, that is all about the collection of data, means if you are going for a research or a survey, means if you want to investigate anything or inquire anything or analyze anything, you need certain data. So, how you can collect the data or the process through which you can collect the data is known as collection of data. Okay. Now, moving down towards the next part, that is important terms. Before going to the chapter itself, okay, you need to remember or you need to memorize certain terms, very important terms. Okay. So, what are those terms? First of all, the person who conduct the statistical inquiry or the investigation is known as investigator. So, whenever we will use this term investigator, so you must need to know or need to remember that the investigator means the person who is investigating the thing. Okay. Now, who is enumerator? The second term you need to remember, that is enumerator. Now, who is enumerator? Enumerator is the person who assists the investigator to collect the information, means his or her duty is to assist the investigator. Then respondent. Who is respondent? Who is going to respond to the question or to the inquiry actually. Okay. Means the person who is interrogated or from whom the data or the information is being collected is known as respondent. Okay. Suppose I am going for a survey with one of my friend, and I am the main investigator suppose, and my friend is the enumerator who is assisting me, and I am asking few questions to you. So, you are the respondent at that time, means you are giving me the data or the information, okay. And myself is the investigator, my friend is the enumerator, and you are my respondent or you are the respondent, okay. Now, the whole thing during this process means exchanging of question and gathering information and all. So, this whole thing is known as survey. So, survey is the method of gathering information from individuals by asking questions about a particular topic or a thing on which you want to inquire actually. Okay. So, these are some important terms which you need to remember. Now, let us see what are the sources of data. As I said in the first slide, introductory slide, that the data can be collected from various sources. So, there are mainly two sources from which you can collect the data. These are internal sources and external sources. Okay. So, let us see. So, we have one internal sources, another one is external sources. Now, these external sources are of again two types. What are those two types? First of all, one is primary data, another one is secondary data. or primary data sources and secondary data sources, you can say. Okay, what are these external internal data sources or primary data sources, secondary data sources, or primary and secondary data? We will discuss one by one. So, what is internal sources of data? Let us see first. The data collected from the reports and records within an organization, okay, is internal source of data, means as the name refers, internal source. So, internally within the organization, if you can collect any data, so that is known as internal source of data. Okay. Now, this data collected and compiled through internal sources, and that is why it is also known, it means those data can also known as internal data, because the data you are collecting internally, so that data will be known as internal data. Let me give you one example. When a company publishes its annual report on the profit and loss, sales, uh, total sales or loans, wages, etc., etc., then just never mind this semicolon, okay, mistakenly it has been given here. So, total sales, loans, wages, etc., when they are publishing, a company is publishing in their annual report, and the in the investigator using those data actually for his or her own analysis or enquiry, then it is known as internal data sources, okay, or internal source of data, and the data that has been collected by this process is known as internal data. Now, what is mean by external sources of data? When the means very easy, when the data are collected from the external sources, that is the outside the organization, then that will be known as external sources of data. Okay. Now, data collected and compiled through external sources is known as what? External data. The data which we can gathered through internal sources known as internal, and the data we can collect through external sources known as external data. Now, let me give you one example, data provided by the Ministry of Tourism. Suppose the Ministry of Tourism given some data, and on the basis of that we are collecting that data from that published data, okay, or that those given data. So, that is a external source. We are not working there, but we need some data, relevant data regarding this tourism and all. So, we can collect that data from outside. Okay. Or it may also happen, I am going to each and every house to inquire, okay, regarding my topic, okay, or regarding my inquiry, or rather you can say the on the topic I want to survey, or the topic I want to research. For that I am moving to each and every household to know about or to inquire about their feedback. Okay. So, that is a external source of data. Now, this external data can be collected from two sources, as I mentioned already in the previous slide, the primary source and the secondary source. So, let us see what are those primary and secondary sources. Primary data, okay. It is basically the data which is originally collected by an agency for the first time for some specific purposes. Okay. If the organization or if a person is personally going to the field and collecting the data from the means first hand actually, then it is known as primary data, and the source from where the data has been collected is known as primary source. Now, this is also known as first hand data also. Okay. Later on I will show you, it has been written in the under this slide. For example, as you can see, population census conducted by the government of India. So, maybe in 2021, because the next census will going to be held on 2021. each 10 years, means after each 10 years, after 10 years the census has been conducted. So last census was conducted in the year 2011, and 2012-21 the next census will be conducted by the government. During that census, what happened, the some inquirer, or you can say investigator, they are coming down to our house and they are asking a lot of questions. Okay, so that is a primary data source. They are collecting the information from us, so from the primary data sources or primary sources. So this is also known as first hand information and the original data. The data that they are getting is the original data, because I myself giving the information about myself, someone else is not giving. So I am giving, or this is more authentic and more original actually. Once the data is collected and published, it becomes what? It becomes the secondary data, because see here, later on I will say how it become a secondary data, because secondary data is when we are collecting the data from a secondary source like published or unpublished sources, means it has been published in a newspaper or a journal or somewhere else, and I am using those published data for my research work, then it is known as, because I myself did not went to those houses to collect the data, I am getting the data from a secondary, another person, that person who has already went to that place. Okay. So I am getting the second hand data. Okay. So this is known as second hand data as well, because already the person has used those data and I am getting the second hand. That is why it is known as second hand data. The sources from which the secondary data is collected are known as or called as secondary source. For example, economic survey published in government of India, published by government of India, or maybe that census record which has been conducted by the government, but when they published those data and I am using, or someone else is using the data, means using those data for his or her, or myself also for my own research, then it is known as secondary data, secondary data sources. So it is second hand information and the data is not that original. Now let us see the differences between this primary and secondary data. This is a very important topic as well. See, primary data, it is original in nature, as I said, but secondary data is not original in nature, because we are collecting it from somewhere else or someone else. Now this primary data can be collected directly from the source. It should be or collected from the directly from the source, and in case of secondary data, what we are doing, already the data has been collected by some organization or someone and we are using those data simply. Okay, means it is a processed data already and we are using those data. Now under primary data, it takes longer time to collect, huge time it will take, because you have to move down to each and every place or each and every house to get the to collect the data. But when it comes about the secondary data, it took very less time. Government will invest huge time, huge workers or investigators to for those census. Okay, it will take huge time, but when I will use those data, means which has been published by the government, I will get within a second, actually within a search, Google search, fraction of second, if the network connectivity is good, then I will get it very easily from the government. Okay, or from those published data. It may be from book also, means we can purchase the book and we will get the data, the journal or the book. So easily accessible. Primary data is costly, okay, but secondary data is less costly. We can purchase a book and we can get the data, but in case of primary data, we need a huge number of people or investigators who can move down to, or the enumerator who can move down to each and every household to collect the information from for me. So, it will be a very costlier. Okay. Now, rather means it has some negative, means it may be a primary data may take longer time, it may be costly, but the thing is that very important thing is that primary data is more reliable and suitable compared to secondary data. Secondary data is less reliable and suitable. It is not like that we cannot rely, but still it is better if you collect those data from your own self. Now, what are the methods of collecting this primary data? Let us see. There are several methods to collecting this primary data, not secondary data. Primary data you can collect by several ways. Basically, there are 6 ways. First of all, direct personal investigation, then indirect oral investigation. Later on, you have information of correspondence, and fourth one is telephonic interviews through telephone calls, mailed questionnaire method, and lastly you have questionnaires filled by enumerators. So, these are the 6 different methods of collecting the primary data. Okay. What are these methods, or how these methods works and everything, I will discuss in the next video. For the time being, you go through this up to this portion. Okay. So, in the next video, I will discuss all those 6 methods of collecting the primary data. For the time being, thank you class.